All right. Hello, everybody. It's the Meista from Brews and Tunes. Cheers. I am absolutely thrilled today. I am chatting with a legendary rocker, the one and only Mr. Steve Blaze, of course, of guitarist, founding member of Lillian Axe. Thank you so much for joining me today. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing good, man. I feel bad because I only have iced coffee.
That
You
works.
know,
That works. I
so
love iced coffee, so that works.
how are you?
You have some big news, uh, several things happening right now, but yeah, I don't want to steal your thunder, so I'll let you talk about this. So something big today, and then something big, really big, also a week from today. So maybe we could start with that. Some pretty
Absolutely,
exciting news.
is a big day because about 4 or 5 hours ago we premiered our first video for the first, I guess if you would say single, so to speak. I Am Beyond. It premiered earlier today, and we're thrilled about it. The reviews have been unbelievable about it. People are not only just the video, but the song itself. So
Yeah.
it's an opportunity to see the video, but to hear a track before the album comes out. So we're just tickled about the fact that people are loving it. And then a week from today, the actual album is released. You know, it's been out for pre-order for a while, and we've been just building it up over and over again. And yeah, a week from today, the same day that we'll be playing Monsters on the Mountain Festival in Gatlinburg, Tennessee,
Oh, nice.
and which will be the day before we drive to Atlanta to fly to the UK to do 7 headlining shows over in the UK.
Oh,
And
nice.
7 days in a row, and we fly right back, and then maybe get like a day of sleep, and then back at.
Wow, crazy. Yeah, and you're
And
playing the UK shows. You're playing with Riot, right?
yes, they're called Riot Act now, but
Oh yeah,
it's
Riot Act. Yeah.
basically Riot. And which, when I was in high school, I had several of the albums on vinyl, and I loved Riot. So we're
Yeah.
honored to have them supporting us. It's going to be a fun show, fun tour. And then there's another band from the UK called Kane, which I'm not familiar with yet, but we will be. But they sound great, so it's going to be a
Nice.
fun pack.
Wow, that sounds fantastic. Yeah, you're a very busy guy right now. And yeah, if I may say, I watched the premiere video this morning when it came out, and it's phenomenal. That song is fantastic. It's really, and I've heard full disclosure, I've heard the album. And I was lucky enough to get a advanced copy of it, and it is killer. It's such a great album, from womb to tomb. And it, as you mentioned, released a week from today, so that'll be August
19th.
19th. Thank you. I'm like, what day is this?
Turning my head week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's so it's such a richly textured, wonderful album. I've been just fascinated with it since I got the copy. I cannot stop listening to it. It's every song, and I'm an album guy, and that's what I love.
Right.
It's an album. It's something you sit down and listen to. For me, and it's not. I don't. There are, of course, certain songs I like and love over the years. Singles, but I've always loved just sitting down and listening to an album, and especially if it's, and not necessarily that it's a concept, but it there's this wonderful thread throughout the album, I think. And I was really floored by that album. I think it's fantastic. It's one of the best things I've heard this year.
Thank you. And you know what? You really nailed it, because it is a conceptual record, but not in a traditional concept where you'll see an event or an occurrence that happens and they talk about this event. You know what I'm saying? This
Right.
is more taking the inception of a child, the birth of a child throughout life, all the way and ending with the ascension of the soul. So all in between are all loosely based. Well, I shouldn't say loosely, but based on my life and when these lessons and occurrences happen in my life, and these awarenesses throughout my life.
Hmm.
And so here's the deal. We all have, think about it. How many people have existed on this planet. Billions, billions, billions. We all have an entirely different story, different route, different journey. But I think all of the basic awarenesses and lessons of life, we all hit them, maybe in a different way and have a different catalyst bring it to us. But we hit all the same things. We all learn about love. We learn about death, evil, goodness, triumph, passion. We all are born. We're all created. We all die. We all go elsewhere. And all the things in between, I think they're all homogenous in the fact that we all learn the same lessons, but just in different degrees and different ways they're brought to us. So I wanted to capture that. So I sat down with my life, and I went from when I was born up to the first memories I have as maybe 2 or 3 year old. And then where is the person at that time? Because if you ever really think about, you know, somebody said, what would you do if you were this age? Well, I kind of feel like I'm the same exact person with the same outlook and vision at the core than I was when I was 8 or 9 years old. I just obviously much wiser, many more experiences. I know more and I think more, but the scope of awareness is pretty much, I think, stays the same. You see things through your camera lens for your whole life. So I wanted to capture that. Like the first song is called Breathe. And the first thing you hear on the record is the unborn child's heartbeat. And it's an actual heartbeat from an unborn child. We found a pregnant woman and we took a microphone. No, I'm kidding. We didn't do that. We actually, it is a real heartbeat. And a heartbeat of an unborn child is not your typical boom, boom, kick drum type thing. It's a swooshing kind of sound to it. And I think that a lot of people don't realize that. But that's what the song is about, the actual birth of the child, that existence and creation of that entity, that once that child is created, and it's created when it's created, not just when it comes out of the womb, my opinion. That is an eternal spirit, an eternal soul that will never die. So it's a major thing. And to think about how we minimalize that, it happens, millions of people are born every year. You know, I mean, every life is so beautiful and important, right? So it goes right into I Am Beyond, the single, which is back to like my earliest memories of things that there are a lot of snapshots more than anything, but you can remember places when you were really, really little. Yeah. You know, places where you were and you see that, but the realization that I am a creature now. I am a life, and look at the stuff around me, and observing the beauty of life and family and, you know, trees and grass and just the realization going from non-existence to I'm an entity now, you know, and then all the lessons through life about learning, when we learn like about real love, and we learn about evil, you know, think about the Golden Dragon talks about the realization of evil. Think about when you're maybe 8, 9, 10 years old, and the first time a kid sees a dead dog or something and it really hits him for the first time. Wow. Or you know, unfortunately, sometimes kids witness that at a younger age. But, you know, when you start to realize these things, and then the realization of the paranormal, which is migrating north, is about. And I don't mean paranormal like realizing about ghosts. I'm talking about the true realization of God and other dimensions other than just what we can see, feel, and touch right in front of us. Mm-hmm. And so it goes all through the whole album up until the learning about how much mankind keeps stepping on his own tail and refuses to grow. And, you know, we have all these gifts, a gift of life and this beautiful planet and all this, and we just want to keep on taking it and screwing it up. And it becomes frustrating. But even though it sounds kind of doomy, that I bring it up, like with The Fall of the Human Condition, The Great Deception, Feelings of Absence, those are songs that are strongly kind of discussing, I would say, or coming down on us for screwing ourselves over. I'm also kind of speaking the fact that I think that we have the strength to overcome these things. So, you know, kind of a warrior type attitude I have towards it. Like, yeah, we're screwing it up. Look in the mirror and screw up. So we can stop, though. It's real easy. Just
Yeah.
get your together. Stop doing this to each other, and stop worrying about whether Mr. Potato Head is a man or a woman, and start worrying about whether or not your neighbor has food or the people around you are okay, and take care of them. Or if somebody that, is going through a hard time has support from friends or people, I tell people all the time, I tell my son, you open the door for everybody that you see, you say hi to people, you make them happy. Whatever, those little things can change people's lives. Definitely. And then it goes into the latter part, which the last 3 tracks are Finally, Clarity, From the Mountaintops, and Ascension. And that is about the time in life where the human being passes. And at the same token, From the Mountaintops is I vision myself standing on the mountaintops, looking out over creation and realizing that, what? We are not meant to really understand any of this. And we don't have to. We don't have to. We're not ever going to. We're not built to. But embrace this path, embrace the journey, follow the right path, do the best things you can, move on. And that's, I think, when we're created, that's what we're meant to do, to constantly grow and get better, not to go backwards, not to hurt each other, not to screw things up. So From the Mountaintops brings it to that point. And then, then Ascension takes us into the wherever we're going next. Everybody has their own beliefs. Mine is as simple as a heaven and hell. It may not, I'm sure it's not going to be that quite simple when we get there, but I think there's a very simple difference between good and bad, right and left, light and dark, Mm-hmm. So Ascension takes us there. So it's kind of like this whole life journey. It is conceptual. I think all of our albums have been conceptual, but maybe not as easily described as that one. That's that right. Concept.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, there's a lot in there. Like you were saying, you can go back and listen to it over and over, and you're going to hear different things. And I tell everybody, they're like, describe the album. Okay, we have heartbeats, we have timpanis, tubular bells, organ, cellos, grand piano, maggots, flies, dragons, cuckoo clocks, choirs, woolly mammoth sounds, birds, bats. And there's a band in there too, as well. So,
and a phenomenal band at that too. I mean, that's the thing too that I love about it so much is one, just, because I'm a rocker, the guitar work is extraordinary. I mean, it really is and I'm not a musician, but for lack of a better term, it's bright, it soars, it's very uplifting, just in terms of the music itself, not necessarily the lyrics, and the lyrics of course are, but I just think just the guitar work itself is, and the whole band, everything that's going on, the bass work, the drumming, vocals, for me, your guitar work is it just soars. And that was the thing that kind of hit me right from the beginning, before I really had any concept of the lyrical content. It was just those guitars, especially, on I Am Beyond. I mean, that's your solo in that is smoking. That is some really cool stuff.
I appreciate that, man. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that a lot. And it's cool because I think there's elements of early Lillian Axe that you'll feel and sense, but at the same time, it's a very fresh, new album. When you hear it, it's obviously Lillian Axe, but it's I don't know how to put this. It's a grand album. I don't know. I was really struck by it.
The one word that keeps coming out is epic. That's what I hear from it.
Yeah, that's good.
And I appreciate that. And you know what? It's kind of I'm happy to hear you say that, because when you have a career that's lengthy, right? And this doesn't just, indigenous to Lillian Axe. People tend to really gravitate towards the things that first drew them to you, right? Mm. So we get a lot of people that are like, the first 4 albums, if it doesn't sound like the first 4 albums, we can't move on with you. You know what I'm saying? You'll get some of that. And if they really listened, the thing that after you have when you put out enough material, you develop your own thing. You do. It's nature. You develop Now it's like Lillian Axe doesn't sound this way. It sounds like Lillian Axe, which that's great. And that's just a matter of time. But you have people still that will say, you know, the Judas Priest is terrible if they don't do another, you know, Sad Wings of Destiny or Rock and Rolla again. You're like,
right.
Wait a minute. If you're a fan of the bands, you need to grow with them, right? You know what I'm saying? Like that too. Now, I'll tell you, like, give Rush, for example. One of my favorite all-time bands, an amazing freaking band. I typically kind of lean towards like Farewell to Kings and Permanent Waves and 2112. The later stuff, I may not like as much as the earlier stuff, but I love it. It's Rush. I'm going to buy it. I'm going to listen to it, and I'm going to absorb it no matter what. You don't have to, it doesn't have to be that you have to always top something else, you know? So we get some of the purists that are like, unless it, you know, it sounds exactly like your first album, you guys are, you know, I can't listen to you anymore. I'm like, that's such a narrow-minded view, you know? And that, so I knew going into this record, it's going to be like, this is really, you know, it's a, you know, and look, it's like choosing who's your favorite kid. You can't do it. I'm proud of all of our records, but I know that this album is like Psycho-Schizophrenia on steroids. And I know it, and I wanted it like that. I wanted that. We spent 3 years doing this and making it grand and a soundscape and just the width and brightness and power without being, I wanted it to be sonically nice too. I wanted it to be comfortable when you hear it. You know, there are some albums that you crank them up really loud and they're great albums and they're great music, but they just, oh, it's too much mid-range or too much. And it kind of hurts you to listen to them too loud. This is just warm, you know, and that Kent Bruce mixed it. Amazing. Ted Jensen mastered it. And it came out like that. I wanted it to be like that. But you can still love Lillian Axe and Misery Loves Company and Dream of Lifetime and still love I Am Beyond and From the Mountaintops. It's all still us.
Yeah.
I'm still writing the songs. It's still the essence of the band. So, you know, I think when people go into this, like you have, let me listen to this. It's not a collection of a bunch of individual songs, which, you know, I even find myself doing that. I want to go hear this one. But if you listen to it as an entire piece, and it's been described as like, some people have said, like, it's almost like a novel. There's almost like a movie. I can see visuals in it. You know, we even talked about that one time. Maybe it'll be like a movie like The Wall or something that goes on. You never know. Cool. Or do the whole album with a symphony and a choir or whatever, you know? So I really appreciate the fact that you get it and you understand it beyond just a bunch of good songs. This is more than that. Yeah,
it's a big deal. It's definitely a big deal.
Thank you.
It's cool. And I totally agree with you. I think as a fan, you want your bands to grow. You want music, you want them to evolve musically. And, you know, I mean, there are times when you get frustrated, you know, especially if they completely change direction and you're like, what the hell is this? This is not what I signed up for. But you know, just that kind of growth is, you know, it's beautiful. It's beautiful to hear that. And, you know, and as a fan, I love to see bands, you know, kind of reaching beyond what their usual thing, you know. I mean, and there's some bands, you know, AC/DC, you want an AC/DC album. You don't want them to do a prog album. But
one's for everybody. You're right. But even though, like you're saying, like AC/DC, they have that signature strong sound and it permeates throughout all their records. But it's still, it still changes up enough where you're happy with it. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Definitely.
So that's a good point. It's funny whenever people talk about bands changing, they always go, but if you're like AC/DC, you know,
right.
You know, it's a good problem to have if you're AC/DC, right?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Their last album was fantastic. But yeah, I think from Womb to Tomb, just, I think it's not to say that anything you guys have done before is not great, but it just feels like a big, maybe not a big step up, but it feels bigger.
I feel I agree 100%. And look, being on the inside, I can be honest with you. It's like you know, and I get asked all that, what album is the most quintessential favorite album? And I would have to say that one. You know, before that, it was either Days Before Tomorrow, Psycho Schizophrenia. But I mean, like I said, they're all my kids. But I also know what you know, let's face it, when you are creative in anything, even not even necessarily creative, if you're a doctor or a lawyer, you're hopefully a better doctor or lawyer in 20, 30 years than you were when you first started.
Yeah.
So you never really know. So of course, I think this is the best thing we've ever. I think it's our opus. You know, if somebody said, you know, what do you think's your greatest creative achievement? I would hand them this record.
Yes, very cool. Yeah, and speaking of Psycho, it just had a birthday.
I know, but like 29 years, is it?
Oh wow, that's crazy.
I really.
How is that possible? How is that possible?
Well, I was 2 years old. Ordered it, so no.
Yeah, I was 2 years old when I listened to it originally. Yeah,
but I'm serious, man. It really does. It doesn't seem like that was that long ago. I mean, when you start really, and then when you start going, well, okay, what happened since? Why 29 years? And you go, okay, well, I spent 8 years doing this, and then say, oh, okay, I see where it all went now. Yeah, but it goes. The older we get, man, quicker it is. My son. 13 a couple of months ago, and I mean, it's like, dude, slow down. You know, he's like taller than his mom. He's like, you know, 13, and he's like 160 pounds, and he's got a little tiny mustache coming in. I'm like, man, slow down, brother. Time is going by too fast, you know. So
yeah, my kids are all in their 20s, so it's like, how did that happen?
I know, but you know what? We go out in public. He still holds my hand in public and stuff. And
oh, good.
Around me and holds my arm. So I'm like, yeah, okay, you can do that.
That's cool. That's a
when I'm 80 and he's 50, then he can still do that, you know.
Yeah, that's good. That's a good thing. So speaking of the past and those early days, I was really curious. So obviously, you know, you and your brother Craig are musicians. I was curious, kind of, what was the starting point? Did you come from a musical family? What was the impetus for you playing guitar? What started you?
Well, I'm the oldest of 9, right? So Craig, wow. I think Craig might be about 12, 15 years younger than me. But no, I was 6 years old. And I remember walking outside the backyard on my birthday, and Mom and Dad had on the picnic table, I think it was a guitar, in a cardboard box, an acoustic guitar. And I was like, oh, wow, that's awesome. I liked it, you know. I think they told me at the time it was $19 acoustic guitar. And I was like, wow, a lot of money for this guitar, you know, at the time. And so I started taking lessons right away. I have another brother that's never really pursued it, played some keyboards, never really pursued it, but nobody like mom or dad or uncles or grandparents or anything, like nobody else in the family you know, pursued music. I mean, they're all big fans of it. Now, my brother-in-law plays guitar in a band from here too as well, but not in my immediate family. Nobody else is, you know, they've gone different paths.
Interesting.
They went the school route. They became smart.
Nice. What started you down the hard rock and heavy metal path? Do you remember kind of those inspirations?
Yeah,
early inspirations.
Well, I started taking the guitar lessons at school, and about 3 months into it, the teacher told my parents, you got to get him out of the class. He outgrew the class. All right, I can't teach him anymore. He's got to have private lessons. So I started classical and flamenco private lessons for years. Then I took some jazz. And then in high school, started listening to the radio, like in the 70s and the early 70s. And that was when I was a kid. And I started just loving songs, you know. Back in those days, it was Don McLean and Harry Nilsson and Bread and just the songwriters, America, you know, bands that the Bee Gees, and there's these beautiful songs and harmonies and stuff. And that was like, then I started really getting more into the pop songs and stuff. And then Dad bought me Alice Cooper Schools Out on vinyl.
Oh, wow.
And I heard School's Out on the radio. And, you know, in the kitchen, I can remember we open up the album and vinyl comes out and it's got a pair of women's panties on it.
Yeah.
So, you know, I'm like 10. The mom's like, what is that? Their mom, here, you can wear those. I just want the album, you know. So then, you know, it was like, then I was getting paranoid by Sabbath and all these early hard rock albums that came out in the late 60s, early 70s on vinyl. And that flipped me over. And I was like, how do I take, because I was all hand playing, finger picking, reading, playing Malagueña and you know, learning Bach pieces and stuff. And that's was it. But then I realized, you know what, there's not that much difference between this hard rock and this classical stuff. It's all the great melodies. So I think that was one of the things that I attribute to my sense of melody was the classical training. And then I just got into that. Then I taught myself how to adapt, play electric guitar, because all my friends at school were like playing Heartbreaker by Zeppelin in the ocean. And I'm like, and I'm playing Malagueña. How do you do that? You know? And so then I did it. And then I was all in, you know. I was still doing sports in school and all that, but I was like, I started the guitar club at school, and then all my friends who played guitar, and I looked up to, all of a sudden, I'm like, well, hey man, you mean you can't play that, but you could play that? Oh. And then I started to just get in my own bands and start, and I was all in at that time. So even through my college years, I had bands and I was playing, and you know, and then I just realized, you know what, I was in pre-med at first. I'm like, I don't want to be a doctor. I don't want to be a lawyer. I don't want to do this. I want to play music. So, you know, started immediately, and, you know, got started with me and Michael Max way back then. You know, we started our bands and we played and we stuck it out. Everybody else was falling off to the wayside. We kept. And then, you know, then we spent a lot of time on the road, playing everywhere and anywhere and learning how to be on the road and how to perform. And, you know, that was our schooling. And then we got fortunate in 87 to get our first deal, you know, with MCA.
Yeah. Very cool.
Right. Whole nother story.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and you and Michael Max have been, yeah, like you said, I mean, you know, he's obviously still, you know, in the band. You both formed, you know, started the band together.
Yeah.
Back in, I guess would have been what, 80,
Actually, 83. That was 83 was like when we say we were together, we were called Oz before that. And then we changed, and then, like, I always say Halloween of 83, but we actually were using the name for several months before that. But that was kind of like when we really, it was when we had gotten Danny King, our drummer in the band, and was like, this is the, you know, if anybody asked, it was tonight, Halloween night, you know, 80.
Nice.
But Mike and I had been out playing a couple of years before that together. So that seems like a long time ago.
Wow. That's cool. And I know you've told this story many times, but I always thought it was, I love the origin of the name Lillian Axe.
Yeah, remember Creep Show, the movie? We had gone to
that movie.
Isn't it great? So there's that scene at the beginning of the movie with that little boy in his bed, and his dad's kind of not letting him read his horror magazines and whatnot, and he looks up and he sees this bridesmaid skeleton in the window. And when I saw that movie, you know, because even when I was a little kid, I was always into the paranormal and horror, and I read horror mags and everything. I'm fascinated by it. And then, so we were Oz, but we had a manager that was kind of screwing us around. So we had to change. We wanted to change the name and start fresh. So I saw the movie, and I'm like, what? That creepy old lady couldn't get out of my head. I'm like, we need a weird old lady name, you know, or some creep who gives like, what's a good one, you know, Lillian, and it just rolled off my tongue, Lillian Axe. And I went from the movie, like about a couple of miles away, right to there's a singer at the time, to his apartment, knocked on the door. Hey, Lillian Axe. He goes, okay, that's the name, and I hope you like it because it's what it's going to be. I was dead set. And he goes, yeah, that is cool. Let's do that. And no obstacles there. We just like, everybody loved it. And we just,
nice.
That was it. It was quick.
Cool.
Stuck.
That is great. How did you guys connect with Robin Ford of Rat?
Robin Crosby?
Or Crosby. Sorry. What did I just say? I said Ford. Sorry. Yeah. Crosby. Yeah. Sorry.
We got asked to open up for them on 5 dates. Okay. So we're an unsigned band. We've been touring around throughout the South and some in the Midwest and Northeast for like 4 years. And we're making a big name for ourselves. We're playing clubs on Tuesdays and Wednesdays of the week and drawing 500 or 600 people. So it's like, the next obvious thing is you guys have to get a record deal. So, but we're in the South. So what are we going to do? So we get asked to do these shows with Rat and Queensryche and Poison. After 2 shows, I get a call from Marshall Burrell, who was Rat's manager at the time. And he's like, "Hey, Steve, this is Marshall Burrell, Rat's man. How you doing?" "I'm fine, sir." And I knew who he was. I'm like, "Oh, guys, he's either asking me to join Rat or whatever." And he goes, "Do you want a record deal?" And I was like, "Yes, sir. I'll have a record deal. That'll be nice." And he said, "Well, Robin Crosby really loves the band. And he wants to produce your first album, and I can get you a record deal if you're interested." Oh, I said, "Okay, yeah, let's do it." So then we still had 3 more shows with him. So we did the shows, and over the course of the next 6 months or so, we got signed by Irving Azoff to MCA. But that's how we met Rob, and he had seen us when we did these shows. And then right then and there, we talked a few times, and everything got set up, signed the deal, and off to LA.
Wow. That's crazy. That's wild. That is so cool. And I apologize. I'm going to kind of circle back a little bit. I was curious about, because you grew up in Louisiana,
yeah,
outside of New Orleans.
Yeah.
Did that musical scene have any influence on you? I mean, and I was kind of also curious about what was the rock and metal scene like in the early 80s, late 70s, early 80s in New Orleans? Because, when you think of New Orleans, you think of jazz and blues and, Zydeco. But, what was the metal scene like there? I don't really have a concept of what that was like.
Well, in late elementary, 7th grade, 8th grade, junior high, the only band that was really out there that was making a name for themselves was Zebra. Who, and they're still around, and they were playing like, classic rock. Well, it's classic rock now, but they were like the Zeppelin tribute band. They did Zeppelin amazingly, and they were playing everywhere, but they did Zeppelin and Bowie and Moody Blues and stuff like that. And, they went on later to make some great albums, and they're still out now.
Yeah.
But that's who we were going to see. And but when we were in high school, we were all gravitating towards Priest and Sabbath and Aerosmith and Alice Cooper, Van Halen, that kind of stuff. So when we started Lillian Axe out, I'm not kidding you, man. You could play a different city in Louisiana pretty much every day for a month, and you wouldn't cross over into the same place twice. There were lots of rock clubs. The local scene, it was great for us. And then they had some other bands that started out, a band called Razor White. And all these bands were kind of our underlings. Like we would go out, Lillian was the big metal thing. Zebra was doing good. They had just kind of put their first album out. But so they had kind of gone off, and they were doing a lot of New York stuff. And we were like the metal thing down in Louisiana. There's a band called Victorian Blitz. Kirk Winstein from Crowbar was the guitar player in that.
Okay.
Bill Anselmo from Pantera was the singer in Razor White. So all these guys were like our underlings coming up. And then there was a good scene. And a lot of, we were playing State Fair. We were an unsigned band, but we just kept building and building. And I'll say this till I go to my grave, but disappointing aspect was that the city never seemed to really embrace the hard rock bands. Back in those days, there was more of a relationship between radio and live venues and that kind of thing, and the labels. Everybody worked together to promote shows. If we did a show in town, look, I was an unsigned band and I had radio shows, and I was getting our stuff played on radio, but the local press and everything, they would put on the local magazines a blues guy who sold 4 records and was playing down at Pizza Hut next Friday night and not put us who got a new record deal or just, you know, have new videos on MTV or this or that, they really wouldn't get behind us. And there were several bands that deserved that. And there's nothing wrong with the blues. As I'd go, that's part of Louisiana, right?
Yeah.
But so is the hard rock scene. And it wasn't really fairly treated. So years and years later, when we got inducted into the Louisiana Music Hall of Fame, it was like, finally, like, okay, thank you very much. So, but you know, being acknowledged by the entire state made up for, you know, that. So, and it hasn't changed much. It's all about the tourist and, you know, that kind of stuff. So, unfortunately, but it doesn't matter because it's really not about that. Our fans in Louisiana is what it's about. And we've got, I mean, we have fans that have been following us since, you know, early 80s. Right. It's all about the fans in our home state that have been amazing. And so, you know, the scene was a lot better as far as clubs and stuff like that and turnout and everything. I mean, seriously, man, it was amazing at one time. Now it's, you know, it's minimal everywhere. It's a struggle everywhere. You just do the best you can.
Yeah. It's a weird, music is such a weird industry.
Isn't it? It really is.
Fickle, strange industry, you know, and unfortunately, I guess it's changed in a lot of ways for the better, in my opinion, in that bands now can self-produce, and, you know, whereas in the 80s, you know, you basically, as you mentioned, you kind of had to go to LA or New York to make it.
I'll tell you what, yes, though. You know, if you notice, like in the 70s, right? Like take a band like Alice Cooper. I mean, Alice Cooper was the third album, Love It to Death, right? They put out Pretties for You and Easy Action. And there wasn't really much response for it, right? Labels didn't dump them. The labels stuck with them. The labels would have 5 or 6, 7 bands, and they didn't give up on them. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't like how things started to become in the 80s and really probably are still now. You know, do it as cheaply as possible, throw it out there, and hope that something sticks to it somewhere. And that's a shame, because it's very rare that any band on their first album all of a sudden is going to, you know, it does happen, but it's usually the labels that have put a lot into it. I mean, look at the GNR album. That album supposedly was not doing well at all. It had been out for a while, and, you know, they're making a little waves, but nothing like what it turned into. Yeah. But evidently somebody kept pushing, and then this hit and this click, and the next thing you know, one of the biggest selling records of all time. So it's a testament to perseverance, that's disappointing. And I think that it's been a disappointing thing with some of the labels we've been on too, because they were, you know, MCA was like, okay, we're doing pretty good with this, let's jump to that. Okay, now we switch labels, and the first thing you know, Poetic Justice is selling a lot of records, and True Believer becomes top 40 hit, but they don't put a video on MTV out for it. They wait till the second single. Why did you do that? Why didn't, when it was moving up the charts every week and selling units, when they probably would have added it, at least start off adding it lightly, why didn't they do it then? Oh no, we're going to hold off and we're going to do the next single, you know? So, you know, every band and every musician has their tales of woe about, you know, what has gone wrong in the past, but you know,
well, and sadly, I think there's certain producers or record company execs, especially at that time, where, you know, they had something they wanted to push and that got pushed. But you know, especially now, you know, hindsight's 2020, you know, you look back and like, man, there were so many great bands and great albums that just did not get the kind of recognition they deserved. I think Lillian Axe is one of the, I mean, and you guys did well, but I think you should have been much bigger, in my opinion.
Penny for every time somebody told me how underrated and how much we should have commercially been much bigger, I would not have to worry about it. We'd be commercial bigger.
Yeah.
But
And one of the things that you know, not to get too much into this, but one thing that I was always frustrated with is, and still am to this day to some degree, is the genre game. And the fact that, you know, Lillian Axe got kind of pigeonholed for a time in the hair metal, that term, which had negative connotations for, you know, especially once grunge hit. And I never saw Lillian Axe as a hair metal band. I just saw them as a killer hard rock band. And that was always a frustrating thing for me. And there were other bands like that too at that time that I think got pigeonholed like that.
Yeah, and you know, I'll tell you what's funny and kind of ironic, right? It's like it was so easy to just, like, if you had long hair, halfway decent looking, you didn't even have to be halfway decent looking, wore leather or, you know, whatever crazy outfits or whatever, then all of a sudden there was a stereotype. But meanwhile, in comes grunge, and it's the same premise. Yeah. Everybody that's doing that is doing the same thing. They're all wearing this, you know, the flannel and the shirts and, you know, and the lack of, you know, the let's be real and organic and all that kind of crap. That in itself is the same thing. Yeah. It's you created another stereotype that just looks different. So all of a sudden, if you were into the grunge thing, you know, it was okay to be a stereotype of that sort. But, you know, so it's kind of hypocritical in a way. I just think that the press and the media really were the ones that put the stake in it. You know, I think that if they hadn't made a big deal, if Rolling Stone didn't have to have a big headline that says glam metal or hair metal is dead and this and that, just here's a new band. It's new band called Alice in Chains. So yeah, they're going on tour with Cinderella next year or whatever. Kids wouldn't have cared. Right. Yeah. Stars, man. It's cool to be a little different, a little flavor of the same thing. You can't live on the same thing over and over. Enjoy it all. I mean, I know most people I know love Queensryche and Rat, Motley Crue, and they still like Soundgarden and Nirvana and you know, Alice in Chains. You can like them all. It's great. Yeah. You know, I like Beethoven and Bach and Mozart, and they've been dead for hundreds of years. So it doesn't. Right. That's the beauty of music, man. There's such variety, you know. But you know, we realize that we've become a product. You know, it's like a can of soup. You know. Yeah. So you ever notice that when they're selling things these days, it can't just be, this is really good soup. No, it's got to be the most amazing soup that is free of soup making, you know? Yeah. So
it's extreme.
You forget about everything you've ever eaten. But,
yeah, exactly.
Roll with it. Keep rolling.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned, I did want to ask you about this. You mentioned the fact that, and I believe it was, I'm terrible with years. I'm terrible with dates. I believe it was about a little over 10 years ago, like 2010, 2011, that Lillian Axe was inducted into the Louisiana Music Hall of Fame.
The band got inducted in 2010. And then this past year in 21 in November, I got inducted personally. Individual.
Yeah, very cool. Congratulations.
So, I'm flattered and completely honored and humbled by that. You know, I don't think anybody else has been inducted twice.
Yeah, that's cool.
Elvis should have been, but he's just one. Actually, Elvis is in there too. Yeah, I'm just floored. You know, so it's really good. You know, that was one of those moments that I was like, holy crap, I have dealt with. I'm okay now. At least I'm all right. They can't take that away from me. They can take everything else, but they can't take that away. So
yeah, that is very cool.
It's humbling, but it goes out to, and I told that in my speech. I said, this goes out to so many people, man. Band members, crew, family, fans, anybody that's ever had an inkling of a positive thing involved with us. It goes out to everybody. So, you know, it's just a nice thing, man. And I got a cool ring.
Oh, very cool. That's great. That's awesome. So and I apologize for my ignorance. So the second one, which was for you alone,
right?
So was that like, in terms of like all the music you produced, all the bands you've been in?
Or mainly guitar player, songwriter.
Okay, gotcha. Okay.
So probably, you know, I guess it encompasses a little bit of everything, you know, but you know, I'll take it.
Nice. Yeah, because if people don't know, I mean, you know, you're obviously known for Lillian Axe, but I mean, you played with Angel and
Yeah.
Black Oak, Arkansas, and you've had
Well,
you know,
and
other.
his solo album, but Jim Dandy from Black Oak. Yeah, I was on his
Okay.
solo when I was oh gosh, I must have been about 20 or something like that. It was a while ago. It was like right when Lillian was kind of starting to get teeth out, 21, 22 years old, something like that. So that was an amazing thing too, because Jim, you know, Jim's a legend.
Yeah.
And he was a good guy. I haven't seen him in a long time, but every now and then Jim said hi, you know, and that kind of stuff. So I'd love to see him again. But yeah, that was that was an honor, you know, way back then to play on his record.
Yeah, that's really cool. That's amazing. That is great. Well, Steve, this has been an absolute honor and pleasure chatting with you this afternoon. I highly recommend for anybody listening, if you have not heard the new Lillian Axe album, From Womb to Tomb, you need to buy it right now. You can pre-order it. It comes out next week. And check out the new video. There are in the description below, there are links to Lillian Axe's Facebook page as well as their website. You know, go check them out if you're not familiar. What a great band. What a, you know, an American hard rock institution. Yeah, so again, thank you.
Real quick.
Oh yeah, please.
Captain America shirt on?
Oh yes.
Okay.
I wore that. I wore that because of your tattoo.
Well, I got to tell you another story. But, and I'm not trying to end on a downer, but when my dad passed away, he was wearing a Captain America t-shirt. Like,
oh, wow.
That one's kind of not, it's not black. It's like dark blue, right?
Yeah.
Okay. We might've gotten it the same place. My dad, my first model, and the reason why I got this tattoo was Captain America when I was probably 5 or 6 years old. Nice. He bought me the model, you know, when the old ones, the plastic ones you used to put the glue, use the tester's glue to put the, well, that was the first model that we got was Captain America. So he was my childhood hero. So when my dad passed away, I told him I had no tattoos. I said, Dad, I'm getting a tattoo. You know, because he was in hospice. He knew he was going to pass. I said, I'm getting a tattoo for you. Please give me your blessing on it. And he goes, all right, you can get that one tattoo. Oops, sorry. So I got the tattoo for him. But when he passed away, he was wearing that shirt, not that exact shirt. But anyway, I still have the shirt hanging in my closet, but the shirt that you're wearing right now, he had on when he breathed his last breath.
Oh, wow.
You know, right before that, you know, because he was my Captain America. So cool. When I'm like, wow, that's a little sign from above. So yeah, I appreciate it. Very cool.
Yeah,
so
yeah, I didn't know that story. I knew you had the Captain America tattoo, so I'm like, I got to wear my Captain America t-shirt. And it was and still, you know, I still am a big fan. But as a kid, yeah, I was in fact and I still own it. 1978, I would have been 7 years old. I bought, it's the second comic book that I remember purchasing with my own 35 cents, you know, at a gas station. And I can't remember the number, but yeah, it was Captain America. It came out in October of 1978. And he was, you know, he was on a spaceship, I think, with S.H.I.E.L.D. and they get invaded by the Red Skull and there's a big robot. And yeah, I still have it.
You have it?
Yeah, I still have it. Yep.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
Well, look, man, I appreciate it. We could probably talk about a lot of stuff for a long time.
Yeah.
So I have your number. I'm going to text you when we get off the phone, give you my number. And so you have my email address. And Victor, cool. I appreciate it, man. And I hope you stay in touch with me.
Yeah.
And, you know, hopefully catch you out on the road. And anything I can do for you, you know, just let me know. And maybe we'll talk when I get back from Europe and let you know how everything's going.
Yeah, that'd be great. That would be great. This has been an honor. Thank you so much. Cheers to you. And
during this time. Good for you, man.
Pardon?
I said you drank that whole beer in this.
Oh yeah. Well, a little bit left, but
I don't drink at all. I don't
okay.
drink beer. So what's your favorite?
I'm a big pale ale and IPA guy. Right now I'm drinking this is from a brewery up in Montana called Big Sky Brewing. It's called a Space Goat.
So you're one of these connoisseurs. I mean, I'm like,
I'm a geek. Yeah.
I can tell you the difference between Coors Light and Budweiser. I have no so good for you. It's been a pleasure, Victor. We'll talk to you soon, man. And thanks for all the support, brother.
Yeah. Thank you. Have a great day.
All right. Take care. Bye-bye.